Hello, I'm Kathy Good, the director of the Family Caregiver Center, and I'm joined today by Abby Wire, excuse my pronunciation of that. She just got married recently, and so I'm not as familiar with her new name as I should be. Wire. And she is the center manager. And we're just welcoming all of you today when we're talking about influential dementia resources. We've been fortunate at Mercy to be able to personally know and interact with dementia experts from across the United States. And so we want to share today excerpts of what we have taken away from the things we've read that they've written, from our interactions with them. And we hope, of course, that it's helpful to you. So the first dementia expert that we want to highlight today is Jade Angelica. And she is the founder and director of the Healing Moments Alzheimer's Ministry. She currently lives in Dubuque, Iowa, and I don't know how many years ago now, probably 5 or 6, maybe it's been more than that, she moved to Dubuque from Boston to care for her mother, who was at the time living with dementia. I believe that her mother has since died. Jade holds a Master of Divinity degree from Harvard and a Doctor of Ministry degree from Andover Newton Theological School. You can see her book here on the slide, and it is entitled Where Two Worlds Touch, A Spiritual Journey Through Alzheimer's Disease, and it's her memoir of her experience as a caregiver. I first met her when she did a reading at Next Page Books, the independent bookstore in Newbo. So Sunday morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table reading the Gazette, and all of a sudden I saw that at 1:30 in the afternoon, she was doing a reading at the Next Page Books. And so I changed my clothes and I went down and I met her because I had read her book. So that was my first, and that probably was in early 2016, if I remember correctly. And I liked her book in part because in it she mentions her relationship with Olivia, and I think Olivia's last name is pronounced Hubelzel, who lives in Boston and who wrote the book 10,000 Joys, 10,000 Sorrows, A Couple's Journey Through Alzheimer's, which I had read and very much liked. So I thought it was pretty cool that somebody that was living in Dubuque, Iowa, was in Boston and knew that one of the authors of another book that I'd read that I really liked. So then we invited, the Family Caregiver Center invited Jade to host a Saturday workshop in later, I think it was May of 2016. And there are a couple of ideas which I took away from both Jade's book and her workshop. She's had experience in theater, and she applied the technique of improvisation for use when interacting with people living with dementia. So when you do improv, as I understand it, you always join the reality of the person with whom you're interacting, and you always say yes and. So here's an example. So if Dave, my spouse, who is living with dementia, says to me, "Hey, today I went mountain bike riding." Well, even though I know that he didn't go mountain bike riding, I say yes, and it was such a beautiful day to be outside. I don't try to correct him or force him to recognize that he didn't go mountain bike riding. I just join his reality. So then he might say, "Well, yeah, I didn't even know I could do that." And I might say, "Yes, and I bet that surprised you, and it felt good knowing that you could." So the point that Jade makes that will be reinforced by the other experts that we're going to talk about today is this quote. The world of improv teaches us to say the next logical thing when someone makes an offer. The next logical thing to say when persons with Alzheimer's speak from their improvisational reality may not seem true or logical in our world, but it will seem just right in their world. And the reality of their world is where we must and will meet them. So I think that's kind of a theme here that you'll see that gets picked up as we talk about these other experts. So the next expert that we want to highlight is John Zeisel. And Mercy, a group of us from Mercy, first met John when we went, well, as a result of, not first met him, but as a result of going to visit Abe's Garden, which is a state-of-the-art assisted living memory care residential facility in Nashville. And I believe we went there in 2017. So we met Jade in 2016. We met John Zeisel in 2017. John was instrumental in helping design the relationship-focused quality of life model that we saw at Abe's Garden. And so he developed the hope versus despair model. And as a result of us knowing about him, then we invited him to come and speak in Cedar Rapids to all of us at Mercy and at the Caregiver Center. And he contends, and I agree, that the despair of dementia comes when we only focus on what no longer works. And hope comes when there's recognition that all is not lost and that there are uncompromised parts of the brain. So to maintain quality of life and to have meaningful relationships, he suggests engaging the abilities of the person living with dementia that don't diminish over time. And these are like understanding music and art and facial expressions and touch and the deep need that everyone has to care for others. So further, he believes that there are what are sometimes seen as symptoms of dementia. The agitation, the anxiety, the aggression, the apathy are expressions of feelings regarding and reactions to caregiving, medical treatment, and the physical environments that are not designed to support people who are living with dementia. He's written a book, I'm Still Here, about his model. And his thought about focusing on what remains intact for the person living with dementia is further reinforced and enhanced by the experts we'll discuss next. It's been very interesting when Abby and I started putting together this presentation to see how these experts, even though they're kind of coming from different geographical locations and have had different experiences, they're all saying many of the same things kind of in different ways. So we found that kind of fascinating. Abby, to you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. So I'm trying to advance my screen here. Oh, there you go. Okay, so the next expert is Dr. Alan Power. So Dr. Power is an internist. He's a geriatrician and currently the Schlegel Chair in Aging and Dementia Innovation at the Schlegel U Waterloo Research Institute for Aging, which is in Ontario, Canada. So his model is all about how to view and think about the person living with dementia. His focus is really on how people living with dementia can live well if their needs are met, and he references the Eden Alternative 7 Domains of Well-Being. He's written 2 different books so far. I know he's working on another one. So Dementia Beyond Drugs and Dementia Beyond Disease. And he's been to Mercy 3 different times to talk with both staff and family caregivers. So we've been really fortunate to have him and Daniela Greenwood were both here last year. So some of the things Dr. Power's model really focuses on is person-directed, relationship-centered living, not on care. So really focusing on when you're providing assistance for someone, what you can do with them versus to or for. The relationship is first, again, before any tasks that need to be done. And he defines dementia as a shift in the way that a person experiences or views the world around them. So I mentioned the Eden Alternative 7 Domains of Well-Being. Dr. Power states that if a person's needs are met in each of these domains, then they are living well. So sometimes it's difficult to determine the needs of a person living well with dementia, as they might not be able to communicate. So it's our responsibility to try to figure some of these things out. So I'm going to reference a document that Kathy wrote last year, and it was to help individuals at Discovery Living, the staff there, learn more about Dr. Power's model and how it relates to their clients. So starting with identity, identity is really a specific quality that makes someone unique. So what really makes you, you, or the person you're caring for, them? So Kathy's husband, Dave, his real name was David. In order to respect his identity, you would call him Dave. He was also a very outdoorsy person and loved being active and biking. So Kathy made bicycle riding work for him so that he could continue to do something he loved. Connectedness is really that state of being connected, engaged, involved, connected to those places, past or present, or belongings that are important to you. So Dave, again, was a judge. He had different friends from being a judge and an attorney, and they used to go out to lunch. So that really helped him connect with those people that he really cared about. He also loved Kathy and his daughter, Emily. So they spent a lot of time together as a family that kept him connected to those two who, again, were very important to him. Security, the next one on the domains of well-being, is really freedom from doubt, anxiety, or fear. It's safety, feeling familiar or comfortable with one's surroundings. So Dave had some difficulty knowing where he was, and he was anxious when he didn't know what to do. So in order to help someone who's feeling like that, Kathy would explain what was happening, when it was happening, and provided a reassurance using her tone of voice and her nonverbals to help Dave feel secure in his environment. He also was a very private person. And when people are very private, sometimes when they need physical care or assistance, it can be something that causes a great deal of anxiety to them. So Kathy made sure that his privacy was respected while she was helping him, use the restroom or change his clothes. Autonomy is another domain on the well-being scale. Autonomy is really the ability to choose. It kind of exists side by side with security. So sometimes as care providers, we can over-focus on keeping someone safe and secure, which actually reduces their autonomy. So Kathy would give Dave choices about what he would wear. So he had the ability to choose what he would eat, when he went to bed, or maybe what music he listened to. It's really gaining consent without barging in and just doing something for someone, especially as they are in the later stages of their dementia. Meaning, that's what's valued or significant, what gives life purpose to someone. Again, Kathy tried to create opportunities for Dave to be active, and he also enjoyed music. So he was able to play his harmonica as he continued in his dementia journey and participated in music therapy, and that gave his life meaning. Growth. Dr. Power believes that people living with dementia can still learn. So growth is really those opportunities for development, enrichment, or expansion. And Dave was someone who was always interested in learning something new. He actually taught himself to juggle and run. So Kathy was able to connect him with the friends of the library to try a new volunteering job. Or he was part of the Harmony Hawks, and when he had trouble learning new parts, they used CDs to help him learn his part for the Harmony Hawks. And the last one at the top of the pyramid is joy, which is happiness, pleasure, delight, enjoyment, something we all look for that really brings the well-being into our lives. And I think something important here is not forgetting that simple pleasures can create moments of joy. So it doesn't have to be a big moment. It could just simply be a cool drink on a hot day. So hopefully we can all find those moments of joy and help the people we're caring for living with dementia find well-being. So when Dr. Power was here last time, he brought some communication tips. And I'm not going to go through all of these, and honestly, he gave us 20. So if anyone's interested, we can give you that document. But really, it's important when you're communicating with someone with dementia to be present in the moment. make sure that those distractions, like background noise, sometimes bright lights can be distracting. Try to remove those. Just be aware of your body language. And if you can sit with someone or talk at eye level and talk to them as an adult, again, giving them choices or visual cues as they need, that can be really powerful. Another thing that is really important is validating how someone's feeling. So they might not exactly be able to tell you how they're feeling, but try to figure that out based on what they're saying. And if you don't get it, that's okay. You know, apologize, right? Just say, I'm sorry, I was only trying to help. What can I do differently? And that's something that our next expert here, Tipa Snow, also addresses. So Tipa Snow is someone that Kathy and I both have heard several times, and we're fortunate to be able to see her last year at a conference. She is an occupational therapist. She's the owner and CEO of the Positive Approach, and Positive Approach to Care is a method that she's developed. She really believes in helping people living with dementia live well. And her model is really an approach that people caring for them can use to help them do that. Again, it emphasizes the importance of a relationship based on authenticity, empowerment, compassion, and curiosity. And the relationship is the most critical, again, not necessarily the outcome of one encounter with someone. Tipa believes that people living with dementia are doing the best they can. And it's really up to us, the people not living with dementia, to make life worth living for the people with dementia. It's helping someone continue to use those skills that they have, or providing meaningful activities to give their life value. And sometimes that means that we have to change our approach to be able to meet those needs. So Tipa says a lot of different things and has some good methods, and honestly a lot of good YouTube videos too. So if you're ever looking for something and you might need help figuring out an approach, I would suggest YouTubing her. And we have a couple of videos we want to show with you today that's all about hand under hand. So what hand under hand is, sorry, I'm referencing my notes here, but it is using, again, your skill when the person living with dementia cannot. So someone might not be able to feed themselves any longer, but if you're able to assist them using their hand, the memories, the sequencing memories might not be there, but the muscle memories are. So allowing them to continue to bring their hand up to their face can make it feel like they're still feeding themselves, and make it easier for someone to feel like they have that autonomy and control over their life. So I'm going to share a new screen here with our videos. So you can watch along here. 1 second. All right, so this first short video is all about, again, helping to feed someone.
So I just want you to notice what is happening to this lady and what is Tipa doing. Also notice the reactions of the care partners around. This lady has had multiple strokes and has lost 20, 25 pounds in the last month. And they started talking, they said she just won't eat anymore. They were talking to the family about palliative care, and Tipa came in, and let's see what happened when she tried to hand under hand.
There you go.
I've never seen her open her mouth that big.
Yum. It's because her hand is coming to her mouth versus you poking her in the mouth with your spoon. And her brain going, whoa, what's that? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. And this is like, oh, okay, I'm eating. Got it. That's pretty easy once I know what it is. Here you go.
Wow.
Isn't that fun?
Oh my.
Both of you are going to have a better time. And what I'm doing is supporting under her elbow. And so that gives her a little added information.
Okay.
And when I do that, she can sit upright a little bit better too. And I can judge.
Is this not amazing? I get thrilled when I learn something new.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. We're going to try the same thing with Miss Frances a minute and see if she's okay with it. See if she likes it.
So what you can see in this video is that this woman's mouth is even opening, which they said was difficult before. It's really that rhythm that Tipa's using too that's normal when you're feeding yourself. So that sensation of her arm coming up to her mouth is feeling, again, like she's feeding her own self, and you're not just shoveling that spoon in. So hand under hand is really an example that you can use. And again, I'm going to share back to my other screen. That Tipa shares that you can use. So I am going to skip the other video just because of time's sake and allow Kathy to go on then to our next expert as I pull up the PowerPoint again. So go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, thanks, Abby. The final person that we want to share with you and highlight is Judy Cornish. And Judy is an author, and she's the founder of the Dementia and Alzheimer's WellBeing Network, or DAWN, D-A-W-N, and the creator of the DAWN method. And she's also a retired elder law attorney. She's written 2 books, the Dementia Handbook and Dementia with Dignity, that take person-centered dementia care from theory to practice by identifying the skills that are not lost to dementia. And her goal is to help families learn how to truly support their loved ones and enjoy more companionship as that the person that they love lives with dementia. So the experts we are highlighting reinforce the importance of focusing on the person, not the dementia, as does Judy. So Judy has observed that while rational thinking skills or cognitive abilities in the person living with dementia change, that their intuitive thinking skills remain intact, and in fact, they might even intensify. So when I was putting this together, I thought, so intuitive thinking skills, what are intuitive thinking skills? So I tried to define that a little bit, because if those are what remain intact, then those are what we need to focus on. So intuitive thinking skills, we receive that information from our senses. And it's probably beneath consciousness, and they include kind of our gut feelings and our instincts. They're not necessarily, intuitive thinking skills are not necessarily sequential. They just seem to be known. A person seems to know how he or she feels about something. And they take into account the responses to experiences and emotions, not knowledge that is consciously set out to be learned. And usually they're kind of abstract. So as a result of intuitive thinking skills remaining intact or maybe intensifying, people living with dementia react to their own feelings of confusion and loss, and also are very quick to pick up the feelings of those around them. So because people living with dementia have that kind of preserved intuitive thinking, they often are in emotional distress, as they know that their cognitive abilities are declining and they're less able to communicate or perform once easy tasks. Sometimes I think often about Dave and how he got to the point where he couldn't put the silverware in the silverware drawer, and he knew it. I mean, he knew that he couldn't figure out like which slots the knives went in and which slots the forks went in. So if, so they are in emotional distress. So then if their caregivers are in emotional distress, which is often the case, the person living with dementia will quickly pick it up and not know, of course, then what to do about that either. And they will become equally or maybe more emotionally stressed than the caregiver. This is not a good combination. So what can caregivers do? Well, first of all, Judy suggests that caregivers take measures to keep their own emotional stress in check So it's not passed along to or picked up or read by the person living with dementia. No easy task here. And then that they help the person living with dementia compensate for their declining cognitive ability by sharing their own thinking. So here's an example. So if the caregiver wants the person living with dementia to go to the store or help set the table for a meal, the caregiver might say, and I put myself in this caregiver role and say, Dave, I need to go to the grocery store to get some things to make cookies. I'd like you to come with me to keep me company. I'm going to put on my coat and I'd like you to put yours on too. Okay, so now that we've got our coats on, let's get into the car so that we can drive to Hy-Vee. So maybe we can get one of those energy bars that you like when we're there. So if on the way, Dave says, where are we going? I might respond, well, we're going to Hy-Vee to get things to make cookies and one of those energy bars that you enjoy. I like it when you go with me and we do things together. It's always more fun. So mood management is critical in interacting with the person living with dementia and is something as caregivers we can influence. First of all, by keeping your own mood in check with the thought being, put on a happy face. And then engage the person living with dementia in a way that minimizes their confusion by saying out loud the cognitive process that's involved, that if the person living with dementia still knew it, you wouldn't need to say it. And to remember that more than likely, the person living with dementia recognizes and realizes that they don't know what to do, and that affects their mood. So if, as a caregiver, you are pleasant, you nicely share your cognitive thinking and the steps involved in doing whatever needs to be done, the mood of the person living with dementia should theoretically remain positive, and the interaction between the caregiver and the person living with dementia should be much more pleasant and positive. So in a recent blog, Judy Cornish gave some tips. She said it's important to help a person living with dementia retain their sense of self. And one of the ways to do that is to give them opportunities to be kind and helpful. So she reminds caregivers that as a result of the person living with dementia losing rational thought and memory, it's increasingly difficult for them to perform tasks. So it may be difficult for the person to perceive or the sequences or remember steps in the process, like to make coffee or to set the table. However, as the caregiver, you can simplify the request for help by asking the person living with dementia to get 2 cups from the cupboard, or maybe just get a cup from the cupboard, and to take plates to the table. So you simplify the request, but you continue to involve the person living with dementia in activities that provide them with continued independence and autonomy. She also encourages, Judy also encourages caregivers to provide opportunities for the person living with dementia to be able to give, as it's a universal need that we all have. So she says that caregivers can ask for a hug, and that's something that the person living with dementia probably can provide. Or ask the person living with dementia to join in reminiscing about things that they have contributed in the past. So we're at the end of our time and sharing with you about what the experts have to say. We're very pleased to announce to you that Judy Cornish, because we think so highly of her Dawn method, we're going to be able to have her present 2 times each month, beginning in January. The first one is on January 8th from 10 to 11, and the second on January 18th from 1 to 2. And she's going to answer questions that you as caregivers can pose. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to learn more from Judy about her Dawn method and how to have positive interactions with people who are living with dementia. Anything you want to add, Abby, before we sort of sign off from this Take 10?
I don't think so. Thank you all for being here today. And if you're looking for a good book, you know, we've got all the resources here in our library. I also included the website, so feel free to check out these experts and let us know if you have questions.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.